Brent Porcio, TopVelocity.net. 3X Pitch BioMetrics here at Preston Motz, 3X Velocity Camp. Walk through his delivery coming out of leg lift. Look at the hip angles here. We can see just before leg drive leg abduction is at the green is at 9 degrees. So not a lot of abduction, mainly because the knee is down and internally rotated, looks like 6 degrees. So we want to hold knee out. We want to let that hip, drive leg hip open up, abduct, like basically lift up and away. That at the same time too, we want to sit back in our posterior chain. If we look at the pelvis position, you can see it's going back 16 degrees, so it's rolling back. We want it, it's an anterior pelvic tilt. We want a little posterior tilt at this point, so we can really load the glute and hamstrings, which will make it so we're not so quad dominant. So a lot of quad stability here, more than likely why the leg is collapsing. And you can see the front leg is getting out pretty aggressively because of that. So we've got to do better to stabilize this leg, external rotation, more abduction, more counter rotation in the hips, which would create more hip flexion. There's only, it says 21. We'd have a little more hip flexion. It would get us in a better pelvic tilt to load the posterior chain. All these things, as we move the hips forward and down the same rate, would really be key to creating more stability. So then when we go to open and drive, we'd get more hip rotation into front foot strike. So it looks like, there's some good hip rotation, but the problem is that the trunk rotation is going with it. So we're not separated well at all. So if we go to our sequencing, we're more than likely going to see our kinetic sequencing is off as well. We do see, we do see it moving, kind of stepping up, but not that well. The hips are peaking here before the trunk, but only at 585 degrees per second. We would want that more explosive. And then the trunk is peaking later. We see the glove side kind of pulling before the trunk, so it's kind of, we're seeing the hips and trunk, the hips and glove side helping create a lot of that rotation. Not what we want specifically here too. The arm is not fully cocked as we're going into rotation. Okay, so optimally we want to, before the shoulders go into rotation, the arm is already cocked up and ready to go, so we don't drag the arm. And then when he hits front foot strike, you can see things are just sinking up at that point. The speeds look like they're trying to pull apart, but positionally when we land here, you can see hips and shoulders are together. So if we look at trunk position and pelvis position, at front foot strike, we see the trunk orientation is about 32 degrees. So we've pulled towards the glove side past 25. 25 would be excessive. So it just shows there is a lot of rotational energy pulling to glove side as opposed to trunk moving forward. And then we don't see front leg getting that active, the arm really trying to get out in front of the face, even though there wasn't a lot of drag, but because it was delayed external rotation, the arm was pushing out in front of the face for into pitch release, which is harder on the elbow. So the time of the arm path needs to work better with the trunk. We need to improve hip to shoulder separation and get more stability in back leg to power more linear power. So the trunk doesn't want to pull off. It wants to ride more forward, and the arm path is timed up better. And then look at the front leg, not getting a lot of front leg activity. We have some instability, looks like too, and then no extension, which would really help and increase velocity as well.